Hey fellas, welcome back to the series. Today we are going to be dealing with variables. So let's jump right in. So before we begin, just make sure your files created a new file. So I just named mine variables. So let's just begin. So with variables, there are three ways to declare variables in JavaScript. That's the var, the let, and the const. Now, to explain these three ways, we will be using or explaining them in four features. Four features including um, variable declaration, variable reassignment, variable scope, and then variable hoisting. The hoisting part is pretty interesting, so you should stick around. So let's just begin with the first one, variable declaration. So like I said, there are three ways to declare variables in JavaScript. Previously, there used to be one, so but after ES6, two more were introduced. So the first one was, let me just increase this. Yeah. So the first one was var. Then that was the first one before ES6. Then let came about. Then const came about. So these are the three keywords we use to declare variables in JavaScript. So now let's go on to see the differences. So you are taking var first. With var, and when I mean variable declaration, even senior devs normally confuse these two. We have variable declaration and we have variable initialization. So if I say variable declaration, that's what I mean. So let's say first name or some sort. So this is me declaring a variable. This is me declaring a variable. And this is me initializing a variable. So let's see something like Adam. Yeah. So this is declaration, or this is just declaring a variable. Even senior devs normally confuse these two, so um, I wouldn't blame you if you do. And this is initialization. Yeah. So this is what the two mean. So now with variable declaration, as you can see, we're using var, you can actually declare a variable without initializing it to any value at all. Just like this. So with var, we can't declare a variable. And the next thing I'm going to look at is variable reassignment with var. So after, let's say, we do something like this. After, let's say, we do something like this. So let's say submit. Now, we've already initialized our variable. So over here, our variable last name now has a value. So yeah. So now let's check that out. So node public variable. Yeah. So as you can see, Smith is being console logged. As you can see, Smith is being console logged. Yeah. So now our last name has the value Smith. Now when I say variable reassignment, so just say if we wanted to change the name of our user from probably Smith to Doe, all we have to do is last name and Doe. Wow, cool, probably got that right. So this is variable reassignment. When we use var, it allows us to assign new values to our variables whenever, wherever we want to. So that's variable reassignment with var. And then we have variable scope. So with variable scope, if you've not watched the last video, the first lesson on scope, you should check out that lesson, then come right back to probably understand scope really well. It will be around either the left or the right, somewhere. You see the link. So you can just click to it, just watch the scope, and then come right back. Don't run away. So variable scope. So we're going to be talking about scope. variable. So with var is a functional scope, or let's say it's function scope. So anything, if it's within a function, everything is held within that function. So let's take a look. So function, yeah. So if we are to use a var in here, say var. So once this variable is in here, it is scoped to this function. So I can't come out and use last. I'll actually get an undefined over here. I'll actually get an undefined. So we can just write it out and see. So yeah, last name not defined. Yes, because it's scoped to this function. So it can be used outside of the function unless I probably declare it outside of the function, just like the ones above over here. So if I wanted to console log it, I'll have to console log it inside the function. Yep. So now that is what we have with var being a function scope. So it has to be declared within the function. Now another pretty interesting feature that came with var was variables created with var can be hoisted. So let me just give you an example of that. So if we talk about hoisting, so hoisting just means that variables instantiation and the assignment time in relation to variable declaration. So some variables can be used before they are assigned. That's what technically it means. So let's just give an example. So let's say I can try to console log a variable I've not yet created at all anywhere within my code. So example, before I actually come initialize that variable. So let's say example, yeah. So over here you can see something weird happening. I'm actually console logging the example before coming to initialize it, which probably to you it might seem weird, especially you are coming from a different programming language. It might seem very weird, but what is actually happening is that before JavaScript starts running, it actually moves this variable to the top. So let's just move this all the way to the top of the file. That's what JavaScript does for you, and that's what hoisting means. So it just moves it to your block code. So if it's outside in the raw file, it just moves it directly to the top wire for you, so that this can be read by the interpreter or the compiler, whatever it is that's going behind the scenes. So basically, that's what hoisting means: being able to use a variable before actually creating that variable. And this was very interesting in JavaScript. A lot of people didn't, I think a lot of people didn't like it. That's why they had to change it, because it can actually bring about a lot of bugs. So I wouldn't suggest you doing this in your code at all. Makes it very hard to read. And so those are the four features for var. Now let's look at the other features, the same four features for the two that came out. So let's do it. Let's first. So let also can be declared and initialized. So let's see. So as you can see, it can also be declared and wouldn't show any errors before we assign it a value, or we can just initialize it directly. So declare to, yeah. So as you can see, let can be declared and then initialized. Both work for let, just as it works for var. So let's just go away from that. Then the next thing is variable reassignment. So you ask, can we reassign a value to a variable created with let? Yes, of course. We can easily do that. So if let's say we wanted to assign a new value, so maybe like example, okay, we can easily assign that and then console log 32. So you are reassigning this because this has already been given a value. So you are just trying to see if you can give it a new value. Yeah. So you see previously was example 1, example 2. So let's see which one first. Yeah. So see example 3 over here. So that's the same, the reassignment that we did over here. And that's what we're able to console log. So if we do the console log before this reassignment, we'll get example 1. That's what reassignment means. So now let's look at the scope of let. So just like our previous video, scope, let has a block scope. So if we say a block scope, so let's use an if statement, just like our previous example. So if true, and as I said before, when I mean a block scope, I mean anything within this curly bracket. That's your block scope. That's the scope. So if we are to probably declare or initialize a variable over here, and we console log this, we should be able to receive a scope 1 as well, or see a scope 1 in our console. Yeah, scope 1, exactly. So anything within this brackets, once let is declared here, it can also be used outside. So if you are to use, yeah, exactly this. If you are to use scope 1 outside or console log it outside, we'll get an undefined error because it's within this plus scope. So you technically can't use it inside. Exactly. That's let's with scope. So it can with other, whether it's the for loop, uh, whatever it is, it just has the same block scope. So once you just use it inside, you can't probably use it outside. That's it. So let's just move this since that one's a little bit advanced. So it's variable hoisting. So this is actually very simple. Let does not allow you to use variable hoisting. So exactly like this. So previously with var, we could probably console log a certain value. So probably let's just say hoist before maybe coming to write or initialize this. And it's work fine. But when let, it will actually throw an error. So let's just see that whether we'll get, yeah, so as you can see, it shows an error because it's telling you that cannot access hoist before initialization. So with let, there's no hoisting taking place. So but JavaScript does not move this variable to the top of your file or anything of that sort. It just leaves it over there wherever it is. It should remain there. Exactly. So the next thing is var. Sorry, const. So a const is a little bit the same as let, but there's just one particular difference. So with no, actually two differences. So with const, you can actually declare a variable. So let's just say example 3 or let's say 4 this. So this will actually show you an error. So let's see what's the squiggly lines for. So let declarations must be initialized. So you see the difference right away. With const, you can't do this because you actually get an error. So with const variables, you always have to give it a particular value, else you just get an error. So as you can see, I have to initialize it first for it to work. And the second difference const has with let is that you can't also reassign the value or the variable name to anything else again. Const means constant, so it has to be constant. So as you can see over here, I try reassigning, giving example 5 to the same variable name, and it just told me, giving me a type error. So assignment const variable. Let's just run that and see. So as you can see, oh, the hyphen one is still in play. Leave that alone. Okay, so let's just check this out. Yeah, so as you can see, the same error, type error assignment to const variable. So that's what is happening over here. So we can't be assigned a const variable. Apart from that, it has the same features as let, literally the same thing as let. So in terms of scope, it's also a broad scope and stuff like that. Okay, so that was a lengthy one, but you made it to the end of the video, and you should be proud of yourself. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you in the next lesson. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.